What's up everyone, Alex here. If you're planning to get Trails from Zero this month, you might want to consider picking up the Switch and PC versions. This came to my attention while I was browsing through all of the gaming news yesterday, and thanks to James Galizio from RPGsite.net, it's come to my attention that I probably should change the review code that I'm requesting from NIS from the PS4 version to the Switch version. And the reason being is that the PC and Switch versions are being handled by Durante. And if you've never heard of him, he is basically known for a lot of really solid Falcom ports on the PC and other platforms. And particularly, this statement is the thing that I wanted to highlight, which is there are a set of discrepancies between the PC, Switch, and PS4 version of the game. And it says even here additionally that the PS4 release will remain largely the same as the Kai version that was released in Japan a few years back. Now, what's really interesting about this is that there was never a Switch or PC port of Trails from Zero from this release. And so my suspicion is that NIS handled Durante to do these ports, and in doing so has taken upon themselves, Durante Studio PH3 specifically, to add new features to these releases. In fact, in this Reddit post right here, he actually confirms that we are including several features that were not in any official previous release, and some that weren't in the Geofront releases either. Also adding that, yes, they are in constant contact with some Geofront members. He also doubles down and confirms that the Switch and PC versions specifically are planned to have feature parity, outside of some graphical features and performance, of course. You're probably also now wondering, like, okay, so how different is it? How much better are the graphics? And thankfully, RPG Site actually provides that here. So this is what the PS4 version, Kai, looks like. Same screenshot, same angle, and everything. This is what the PC version looks like. And if you take a look at this sign right here, as well as this font right here, when we flip back and forth, you can kind of clearly see the difference. Even this one is kind of like a bit sharper on the PC version. This is the PC version with Durante's enhancements. You can even see like the top of the towers here. They're a lot more refined in terms of like their detail. And also this sign over here, this is the Kai version on the PS4. It's a lot sharper in this one. Now again, granted, we don't know how the Switch version is going to handle it, but needless to say, the texture work is going to work off of the PC version. And if you've ever tried to make something bigger in Photoshop that's like really tiny, it usually comes out like a blurry mess. So trying to actually blow something up from this quality is not great. But if you're coming from this quality and just kind of shrinking it, you tend to retain a lot of the detail from the high resolution assets as much as possible. Here's another screenshot of the PS4 Kai version. And here is the PC version. And if you notice, the railing is actually much higher in detail. And if you go back here, you really lose a lot of detail. It's a pretty significant difference, especially given that there's a lot of work done in the textures to basically make it more defined. And I really like the higher amount of detail here. And I hate to say this because I firmly believe that every single version of the game should have some feature parity, but just looking at the changes here is just sad to me. My suspicion is that it's not that NIS is responsible for the choices of keeping the PS4 Kai version of the game being intact. It's probably some sort of Falcom decision because they actually worked on that specific port. And we have to also remember that Falcom, at the end of the day, is the rights holder. They get to decide whether or not these changes do get to be applied on the PS4 version. If NIS owned this, I'm pretty sure they'd be able to acquiesce and actually make all the versions have the same features. But given that they're technically licensing it, Falcom has the final say. I think it's really sad that this very important detail, especially for people who are spending their hard-earned cash to kind of realize that they might be getting a less than stellar version of the game. And to kind of go back to the site, here is an example of a bunch of textures that kind of illustrate how much work Durante and his team did at PH3. So here's the original texture, here's the original PS4 texture, here's the PSP texture, here's the Uniscale texture, And then here's actually what came out of that by processing all this information. And the final slide basically kind of shows how each sprite was processed. And if you can see here on the very right, this is the final version of the character sprites in Durante's ports on the PC and Switch. It's a lot crisper. Like if you notice here, like there's a lot more detail in the eyes and the hair and stuff. And then you kind of go back and you're kind of losing a lot of that detail already. The Joyo Land one has a lot of noise here, and there's still a lot of noise here, but like if you notice this little pixel right here in the corner, that's not even present in the Durante one. And so if you really look at the small details, you really kind of notice how much work Durante and his team has done to make this port excellent. According to James's article, he suspects that the reason why the PS4 version is the way that it is because the PC and Switch releases are essentially new ports, and I have to agree with that. But then we have to remember that Falcom is the rights holder. They own the IP. They have a lot of say in this. And of what we know about Falcom, they tend to be very prideful developers, right? Like, they worked on the Kai version. Why shouldn't that be the one released in the West, right? I think there's something to that. So I want people to think about that when it comes to this game. It's like there's a specific kind of perfectionist pride that Falcom always prides itself in. This is why like NIS doesn't get the scripts for Trails games until literally the game is done, because Falcom doesn't want people to take a look at the game in progress and the scripts. But at some point, you're going to have a choice of whether or not you want your game to have the same parity across the entire world. At the end of the day, there's going to be fans that just aren't going to be okay with being behind by 4 or 5 years. I'm not, and I would imagine a whole bunch of you aren't. And that's kind of a shame, and it puts NIS America really in a difficult situation here. But that's beside the point. I wanted to let you guys know that the PC and Switch versions of the game are must-have, and I hope I've helped you guys realize this. And I hope you guys also like the way that I'm doing this right now. I don't normally just pull up a website and start reading parts of it and summarizing it and talking to you guys about it. So post your thoughts in the comments below and let's talk about this. Let's talk about what's going on with NIS and Falcom and the Trails from Zero game and what version you're gonna get at the end of the day. Because that's really what's important, is what you get and what you feel like you're getting with your money. So post your thoughts in the comments below and let's talk about it. And of course, if you like JRPGs, Japanese games, indie titles, and more, please consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.